Well, all right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Farminar. I'm Steve Carlson. I'm a staff member at Practical Farmers of Iowa. I'm here in the PFI office in Ames, Iowa. I'll be the host tonight. And as people are still logging in here, I'm going to do a little introduction before we turn things over to Earl. So as you know, tonight's Farminar topic is on diversifying your crop rotation with small grains. And here at Practical Farmers of Iowa, we've been doing a lot of work searching for farmers in Iowa who have been growing small grains or who are in the process of adding them back into their rotations. So tonight's speaker, Earl Canfield of Canfield Family Farms near Dunkerton, Iowa, is one of those farmers. So there's a growing amount of information that shows adding small grains to a corn and bean rotation can reduce input costs and spread out your farm labor and your cash flow and improve soil health and water quality and provide other benefits to the farm. But the knowledge on how to successfully grow these crops like oats or rye or wheat is a little bit hard to find. So Earl's going to share with us today what he's learned over the past couple years diversifying his rotation again. So if you haven't already heard about it, we've got a new video series airing now, brought to you by PFI's Nick Odie. It's called Rotationally Raised. It's a video series that we put up on YouTube each Friday with a new episode Friday afternoon, and they feature farmers like Earl Canfield here who share their knowledge on growing and harvesting and marketing small grains crops. And these are real in-depth, fantastic videos rich with information. So check out our YouTube page. There's a link there on the screen, and stay up to date on what PFI members are doing to bring small grains back. So this is our remaining schedule for our Winter Farminar series. There are two more here on Tuesday nights. We always do them on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, and there are two remaining on our Tuesday night series, but we've also got two Friday afternoon Farminars, or Friday at noon, rather. So that March 10th and March 17th, those are Fridays. So take note of those topics if you want to check those out. Tune in to hear those at noon. If you do miss a Farminar ever, we record all of these and we put them in our archives. So if you miss one or if you want to rewatch one, you can find that at practicalfarmers.org and share them with your friends. So a little bit about Practical Farmers of Iowa. We started back in 1985 by a group of farmers who were interested in improving their profitability and their efficiency and their stewardship. And today we're still focused on those issues, but our membership has grown, and now we're made up of farmers from all enterprises and farms from all sizes and across the state and outside of Iowa as well. So it's a really diverse membership, but we're still very much interested in improving stewardship and profitability. Our mission at Practical Farmers of Iowa is strengthening farms and communities through farmer-led investigation and information sharing. And this mission allows us to help farmers practice agriculture that benefits both the land and the people. Our values at PFI are welcoming everyone, creativity, collaboration, and community, viable farms now and for future generations, and stewardship and ecology. So if any of this is interesting to you, we are a member-based organization, very member-driven, so I encourage you to join us and take part in what we're doing. A membership is quite affordable, and it gives you access to our incredible network of other PFI members who you participate on a number of different email discussion lists. As a member, you get access to our newsletters, discounts to our events. You get to participate in our programming like on-farm research projects, beginning farmer programs. There's a whole lot of member benefits, and those are spelled out pretty clearly on our website, so I encourage you to check that out or contact one of us staff members, and hopefully you'll join us. On our website, we do have an event calendar. Check that out because there's a lot of things happening this time of year all over the state and outside of the state as well. These aren't just PFI events, they're partner events as well. And right now we definitely are excited about our spring cover crop field days. So this is a sneak peek. We'll be announcing all of these with all the details coming up in a couple of days here. So check back to our website for those, again, practicalfarmers.org. But all of these field days here are focused on spring cover crops. Some of them, obviously, as you can see, are on grazing. Some of them are just other cover crop topics related to incorporating those into corn and soybeans. All of these, I think, are going to be held around the time about 12 noon to 3 p.m. They all include lunch. They're all totally free, so hopefully we'll see you at a couple of these field days this spring. So finally, a couple of housekeeping bits. If you want to stay in touch with PFI's Farminars, like I said, please provide your email address in the chat box. We'll put you on our weekly email list that we just put out this time of year during our Farminar series, nothing too intense. And because it's fun to see where you are all tuning in from, like it looks like you all got the hang there. There's a lot of people from out of state. We got Arizona, New Jersey, of course, Iowa, Indiana. It's great to see that. So thanks everybody for participating with that. If you haven't noticed that yet, on the very bottom left corner of your screen, we have a little poll to help track how many people are tuning into these Farminars. So if there are a few of you watching together from one computer, check that appropriate box so we can get an accurate head count. It's good for us to have that. And then while our presenter tonight, Earl, is talking, feel free to use that chat box to ask clarifying questions. And I say that because while Earl's talking about, you know, maybe calibrating his planter, if you've got a question about harvest, just maybe hold off for a second because he's probably going to get to it. So feel free to ask any clarifying questions while he's speaking. But we do have 30 minutes at the end of this presentation to save just for all other questions. So be thinking of those as we go along, and definitely use that chat box for those questions. And then one last thing I'm asking is to, near the end of the Farminar, I'm going to post a link on the screen to take a survey to give us a little bit of feedback. These surveys are really important for us, not only to give us a little bit of info about what you thought about tonight's presentation, but also to suggest future topics that you want us to focus on maybe next year. So look for that survey, and please just take a quick minute to do that for us. So finally, that's all I've got to say. I'm going to pull up Earl's presentation then, and we'll let Earl take it away.
All right, Steve, can you hear me again?
Yep, sure can.
Very good. Well, Steve.
Yeah, whenever this loads, it's all yours.
All right, thank you. Well, I just want to reiterate what Steve said there. I just want to welcome and thank everybody ahead of time that's called into this. My intent here as a presenter tonight is to make this a very useful time for everybody, and hopefully we can all learn something together here tonight. I don't at all consider myself an expert on what I'm talking about here tonight, but just as a result of walking down a very new journey here on our farm the last 2 or 3 years, I've been learning a lot of things the hard way, and I guess in some respects I'm starting to get a little more qualified to talk about this subject. But anyway, I'm going to assume that I look at the list of people that have called in, and I know a few of you, but there's a lot more of you that I don't. So I'm just going to assume that none of you have raised any small grains, and you know nothing about this. But as we get to a little later time here in the session, please ask questions or correct me if I say something that doesn't seem right, or feel free to fill in gaps that I may leave, because there's a lot of information that could be shared and needs to be shared to help everybody that's interested in growing small grains get up to speed on it. So anyway, I'm gonna move in here to my presentation. I'm gonna basically be talking tonight about the why, the what, and the how of diversifying your crop rotation by integrating one or more small grain crops into what you currently are doing. Again, I'm Earl Canfield. That first slide there shows my wife Jane in front of me and our 4 kids around us. We own and operate what used to be average size farm in Iowa, but we own and operate about a little over 300 acres today, and it's quickly becoming very small by today's comparisons or standards. But we over the last 2 to 3 years have been shifting our focus away from just expanding acreage and trying to produce more on more acres to how can we vastly improve what we're doing on the acreage that we have? How can we improve our returns? And how can we learn how to do that in a more sustainable manner, both economically and ecologically? We've found that you really have to get the two working together to make that work. You got to be taking care of the environment that where you're farming, but you've also got to be finding a way to do that in a way that's profitable. The two have to go together. And for all of you that are farmers, you understand what I'm talking about. So anyway, that's our family there. We own and operate our farm. We do all of the work on it. So you're gonna see more of us in the slides to come here. And with that, we'll move on. So I just want to, before we talk about the nuts and bolts about bringing a small grain into your operation, I want everybody to just stop and think. Ask yourself that question there. Why are you doing what you're doing today on your farm? There may be a lot of different answers to that question. I'm just going to walk you through a little history for our family and our farming operations so you can kind of understand where we were and the road we've walked down to get to where we're at today and where we intend, hopefully, to go in the future. Anytime you deliberately introduce a change into your life or business, you need to take the time to make sure you understand why you're doing it. If you don't do that, if you don't have a clear, understood purpose up front, inevitably the challenges that come up are going to overwhelm you, and you're going to probably unnecessarily fail at some point in the future. For my wife Jane and I, our children are at the top of our priority list in life, so we try to think about them first when we make changes in our business and think about their well-being. With that said, leading up to 2015, we had been thinking long and hard about where our farming operation was at the time and where it needed to be going, both short and long term. We had increasingly developed real concerns about human health and the role farming practices were playing in that. We were increasingly looking more closely at our own farming operation, and we, over time, knew that we needed to find ways to greatly improve the health of our soils, which we knew would lead to healthier plants and ultimately to healthier food that we are trying to produce for ourselves and for people around us. We essentially discovered that we needed to learn how to farm again without being so dependent upon pesticides and other artificial inputs. And when we considered all of that, one of the first things we decided is that we've got to find a way to widen our crop rotations out again. We've got to find a way to bring some more crops back into our rotation. Like most Iowa farms up to that point, we had been in a rut of pretty much just raising corn and soybeans and trying to make that work, but we knew that just wasn't good enough. And we were doing a lot of things along with that to try to make that system work well. You know, we were no-tilling or we were strip-tilling. We were doing a lot of things to try to build soil, build organic matter, but we were discovering over time that there had to be more to it than what we were seeing. So we made the decision there at the end of 2014 that we needed to add a small grain and a companion forage crop back into our rotation. And so we took that step. We plunged headlong in that direction in 2015, and we have been learning by leaps and bounds ever since. And I will say that, you know, it's really just the first step for us. We are trying to find ways to bring lots of different types of livestock back to our farm again in ways that will positively impact the land and make it healthier. But we're just starting our journey with that, and that's maybe that will be another presentation in the future. Anyway, I'm going to move on here. When you're talking about small grains, I'm gonna take us to the point now where you've decided to raise a small grain. Like for us, we made the decision we were going to raise oats. And understand when I talk about small grains here tonight, I'm going to be focusing heavily on oat production because that's what we've been doing. But a lot of what I'm talking about certainly applies to raising lots of other different types of small grains, whether it would be wheat or barley or rye. So just understand that, and we'll try to make this as applicable to the whole small grain system as possible. Anyway, once you've decided you're going to raise a small grain, you got to educate yourself on how to do it. So you've got to pick what you're going to raise. You got to understand why you're doing it. How many acres of it can you raise on your farm? And then as you educate yourself, you've got to answer questions like, where am I going to get the seed or the other inputs that I'm going to need to raise this crop? Is it all just the same as what I've been doing before? Maybe, maybe not. Beyond that, you need to find people that can help you answer questions that you're going to inevitably have about agronomy, about just all of the cultural practices that will come into play in planting that crop and caring for it and getting it to a point where you can harvest it. So, don't be afraid to ask questions. Here in Iowa, where I live, we've got lots of great resources available to us through Practical Farmers of Iowa, especially. They do a great job of networking farmers like myself and lots of other farmers together to think and talk and work together to learn how to do stuff like this. And beyond that, there are people at Iowa State University and even beyond that at other universities and even in the industry, whether it's with people that are selling seed or people that are looking to buy the production. There's a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge, and you need to take the step to reach out to those people and learn from them. Because if you're like me, you're probably not going to be able to just go down the road to your next door neighbor and find anybody that knows anything about doing this anymore. It's just not available like that anymore. And then beyond that, you got to look at your tools and equipment and determine if you have what you need, and if not, what do you need to get, and where are you going to get it, and how much can you spend? And then the last one there, but is certainly not the least, is what are you going to do about marketing? We are not doing this as a hobby. We are in business, and we need to find ways to make money at everything we're doing on the farm, which I'm guessing is true for most of you too. So you need to think long and hard about finding a good, viable market for whatever you're going to raise. And that, just keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this presentation. Just a few more quick thoughts, just comparing small grains to row crops. A lot of the equipment you have, whether it be equipment you take out to the field or just grain storage and handling equipment, a lot of what you already have to raise row crops is going to work with small grains, but depending on who you are and what you already have, you may have to find some new stuff. So just understand that, and we'll talk about that more as we move through the remaining slides here. Obviously, there's lots of different ways to get small grains in the ground. So I'm going to be focusing here on basically spring oat production. But of course, you can plant oats, you can plant other small grains both in the spring or in the fall. But regardless of when you're planting it, if you're not no-tilling, you need to have a proper seed bed to put those seeds in the ground. There's lots of different tillage tools that will work. I mean, if you have a lot of the common tools that most farmers have, such as disc harrows and field cultivators, or some of the newer vertical tillage tools, you can make those work. I'm showing here in my slide a tool that we've owned for a number of years, and we've really been trying to more aggressively learn how to use it in a lot of our different farming operations. And included in that is the process of growing small grains. We have found this vertical tillage tool. This one in particular is made by Genesis Tillage out of Indiana. It's commonly referred to as an aerator. We've had good success the last couple of years using it to prepare seed beds for oats and forage in both corn stalk and soybean stubble. Last year we put those Phillips rotary harrows on the back that you see in that picture, and they took what was before just a machine that was great for breaking up compaction and opening the ground up to something that you could actually make a really nice seed bed with too at the same time. So I just want you to understand that you can use what you have, or don't be afraid to try something new too. That's something we've done. We're doing a lot of experimenting as we learn how to grow small grains and learning a lot of new things along the way. Along that line of thinking, I just want to take the chance to plug another similar tool to what I just showed you there. This is a picture of what I would call the Cadillac of aeration machines that are out there today. It's the only two-gang aeration machine on the market. It's made by the Soil Curse Buster company, or the machine is called the Soil Curse Buster. The company that owns the design for it and is building it and producing it on a small scale right now is known as Soil Regeneration Unlimited. And we had the chance to rent this machine that you see in the picture here back in the spring of 2015 and try it out alongside our Genesis tillage machine. And I can just say that it's an amazing machine. You can do everything from heavy primary tillage to very light secondary tillage with it, and you can use it to prepare a seed bed ahead of a conventional drill, or you can use it even to incorporate seed very nicely if you're just broadcasting or using an air seeder. So there's just want you to know there's lots of options out there. One thing you can do with a machine like this too is you can put like a Gandy type air seeder on top of it, and you can actually blow seed right onto the ground in front of it as you're running it, and it will do a very nice job of incorporating it and giving you a real nice even stand. I know for example, we took that machine out 2 years ago. We had a field of corn stalks that we had lightly worked, and then we took our conventional John Deere box drill over the ground, and we just did not get the kind of evenness of seed placement that we wanted. So we took that machine out and ran it back over the field, and we had the nicest, most even stand of oats and seeding that we could have ever wanted. So, and it looked just like the field had been broadcast. So lots of options there. I'm going to move on to planting equipment now. That is a picture of our John Deere box drill. It's an old, probably mid to late 80s vintage 8300 drill. It's about 12 feet wide. It's got a small grain box on the back, and then it's got a grass seed hopper on the front too. And we've had good success with that machine. It has openers on 6-inch centers, so it does a really nice job of giving you a real thick stand for both the small grain and the forage or grass seeds if you're putting those down. As you well know, I'm sure, any type of box drill like that is going to require loose soil. It's going to require some type of seed bed preparation. So just be prepared to do that. Beyond that, if you have a no-till drill, boy, that's a great option. That's something we don't have today. It may be something down the road that we try to find a way to own, but we just don't have that in our budget at this point. But no-till drills work great. If you've caught any of the rotationally raised videos that Steve Carlson mentioned here in the last few weeks, one of those was on seeding, and there's a lot of good video and information in that seeding video about just different types of drills. And I remember the one comment, I think it was Vic Madsen mentioned that, if there's nothing nicer than taking a no-till drill out into soybean stubble in the spring. It's pretty hard to get a nicer seed bed or to get better germination than what you will get out of that environment. So that's just a good note there. Again, you can use box drills like this. You can use no-till drills. You can use air seeders. Whatever you have, you just need to make sure you take the time to understand how it works, understand how to adjust it for both seeding rates and for depth placement. Again, in the rotationally raised videos, I'll probably refer to those quite a bit tonight. A lot of good information there about, the things you need to think about when you're calibrating your drill. For a long time when it came to small grains, most farmers tended to think just in terms of how many bushels or how many pounds to the acre am I going to apply for oats or wheat or whatever it is. But in reality, we need to think more like we typically do with seeding corn or soybeans. How many actual seeds are in each pound, and how many do I need to get out there to have the kind of a stand that I need. And I know David Weisberger had a lot of good information in that one video about that subject and the research that's been done to understand the differences between a wide range of seeding rates. So I'd encourage you to go check those out and learn more about that. For us, as it will be for you, variety selection is going to be very important. Like with oats, we want to know, we want to make sure we're getting the best grain quality that we can get, and we also want to get the kind of straw quality that we're looking for. And a lot of what determines that is based on the genetics that are bred into that particular variety. For instance, on our farm last year, we had about 50 acres that we seeded to oats. On that ground, we seeded 5 different oat varieties. We wanted to see firsthand, how the different varieties did on our farm, how they responded to different conditions, different soil types. And so that was very helpful to us as we move forward this year and look at the varieties we want to plant this year, or maybe just variety. Anyway, just be willing to do that, because there isn't, unlike corn and soybeans, there's not a lot of, you're not going to find a lot of plots around. You're not going to find a lot of testing being done. As it is today, they're like with oats, and most small grains, I think there really isn't any seed development going on here in Iowa to try to develop varieties that are suited for our state here. So, we kind of have a disadvantage there. So you kind of have to go and get the information you need from the seed houses that are typically getting the seed from other states, and then just do some experimenting on your own and figure out what's going to work on your own farm. Another thing we've experimented with, I'm showing a picture here of a land roller. This is not something that's required, but we had the opportunity to rent one of these last year and just play around with it. So we did that. I had a neighbor that had one of these, and we went and got it from him right after we got done seeding oats and grass seed, and we went over all of our seeding, and it worked out just perfect last year. The ground was dry and fit. We got a nice rain right after that, and we got just beautiful even emergence on everything. I think it especially helped the emergence and the uniformity of stand on the underseeding under the one oat field that we had. So just keep that in mind. You may already own one of these tools or know somebody that does. Don't be afraid to use it. It doesn't work in every situation. It's highly dependent on soil moisture conditions, but it could be a benefit to you. So just keep that in mind. So once you get the plants in the ground and you get them growing and off to a good start, you need to at least understand what you can and can't do when it comes to caring for that crop. That's a picture of our Hagie sprayer that we own. We that's something we can use that to go out and spray weeds if we would want to. We can use it for placing liquid fertilizer on the crop. In our case, we have, even though we own that, we have intentionally been raising our oats and our forage crops the last 2 years without any pesticides of any kind. All of the fertilizers we've put down, we've broadcast ahead of planting. I was hoping last year to experiment with foliar feeding some different biological stimulants and fertilizers, but time and weather just didn't cooperate with that, so didn't get to do that. But I'm hoping to do some of that this year and learn if there are some benefits to doing some of that, especially early on in the life of an oat crop. But for us, when we started raising a small grain, one of our purposes in doing that, as I mentioned earlier, was to try to learn how to grow crops again without being so dependent on pesticides. And we knew that a solid seeded crop like a small grain or a forage crop would be a good place to get our feet wet, so to speak, in that regard. So we've been doing that the last 2 years. We've had good success with it. We haven't had any weed issues that have gotten away from us. Just kind of the nature of the timing of the crop and when it's growing and when you cut it and harvest it, we've been able to stay ahead of any weeds that might be popping up and keep them from going to seed, and it's worked well. I mean, we're not officially on a path to being organic, but that is one thing we're exploring heavily and seriously as we move along. But for now, we're just raising conventional oats and hay and as naturally as we possibly can, and we've been pleased with the results in that regard. So once you get a crop to that harvest stage, the weather's cooperated, you've done everything you can do to plant it and care for it, and hopefully you've got something to harvest. You need to understand there's lots of different tools and options out there to help you do that. That is a picture of a pull type MacDon Draper swather that we bought last summer. It's 21 feet wide. We bought that from an auction up in northern Wisconsin last July, about 2 or 3 weeks before the oats were ready, and that turned out to be an excellent move. We had an old self-propelled Massey windrower that we had used on a few acres the year before. It did okay in some of the conditions we had the year before, but we took it out to the field this last summer to try using it, and it just could not handle the conditions we had. We had some places where we had some weeds and grass growing up under the oats. We had places where the oats weren't standing real well. That thing just was almost useless in those conditions. I'm really thankful we had this machine. We hooked it up to a tractor, and it just did a marvelous job of cutting everything in sight, whether it was standing or not. So that's something you may wanna find access to if you don't already have access to it. This machine we've got here is it was new in the late 90s, but it's got a cutter bar and a reel and just a drive mechanism that's, it runs very well, and it does a real nice job of cutting, much better than the old Massey that we had. That ran well enough that we sold that old Massey last year, and we're going to just move forward with this machine. I will say, so we've got a 21-foot swath we're blowing out the back end there. That was a challenge at times for our combine last year. Again, I'll refer back to the rotationally raised videos. There was some good thoughts shared there about harvesting by, I believe, the Wilsons and Darren Fair about the pros and cons of swathing versus straight cutting. I know the Wilsons shared, that you need to understand what you're doing when you lay down a swath. Is your combine going to be able to handle it? We went out and swathed last year with that, and we went out to combine later, and that was the first time in my life I ever plugged a separator on my combine. So we had to play with some adjustments on the spacing between the beater and the beater grates, and just not get so aggressive running our combine, and we were able to make that work. But just understand that trying to run a small grain with a full load of straw through the combine you have today, depending on how big it is and how big your swath is, that may or may not work as well as it does for corn and soybeans. So just be aware of that. Another nice thing with the pull type swather is we've got 2 or 3 tractors we can hook onto that and go, so we have a lot of flexibility there. The cost was very affordable too. We've got about $7,000 in that machine. It's a fraction of the cost of a self-propelled, and so just don't be afraid of machines like that. Yeah, you will run over a little bit of crop on the outside or the second pass on the inside there, but I think you more than make up for it in the rest of the field. Just some things about swathing. It does give you a lot of flexibility for managing the grain and the straw at harvest time, but understand, it also gives you some unique risks compared to straight cutting the crop. You need to be watching the weather carefully. You could run into issues with grain and or straw quality if you lay that crop down and you get into a wet spell, you get a lot of rain on it. We dealt with a little bit of that last year. We were able to manage that and get through it, but just understand that you need to just be aware of that. So anyway, swathing is a good option. It works really good for small grains. It's definitely going to help you if you have weedy conditions in your field, because you can lay those weeds down along with the crop. The sun will dry them out, and then you don't have all that green fodder going through your combine. So it makes a huge difference in that regard. It also will allow you, with oats in particular, to lay them down, and you'll allow the crop to run through its sweat cycle right in the field there, which can help you if you don't have the kind of aeration you need on a bin for storage. So again, those are some other ways that can help you. So once you get the swath down and you get it cured, the grain's dry, the straw's dry, you're going to need a pickup head in your combine. That's our John Deere combine. It's a 25-year-old conventional machine. We've got a 12-foot pickup head there. It's worked very well for us. We picked that up used for a couple $1,000s a couple years ago. Found it sitting in a farmer's shed up in northeast Iowa. Hadn't been used for probably 10 years. We've been able to run that for the last 2 years without doing hardly any repairs to it. So anyway, if you think you're going to want to swath a small grain, you need to be in the market for a way to pick it back up and to get it into your combine. So you need to look around for that. There are some around, but they can be hard to find sometimes. If you don't want to swath, if you don't want to pick up the swaths, or if you have the tools to just manage straight cutting, why, by all means do that. This is a picture of our combine with a John Deere auger platform. It also has a Prairie air reel on it. Again, I'll refer back to Darren Fair's comments about straight cutting. I believe he has a Lexion combine with a Draper platform, and I know he made the comment that a belt draper type platform is going to work the best for straight cutting, and I would concur with that. We've had a lot of problems getting an auger header to work well, even with an air reel, and do a good job of straight cutting. So we have the last 2 years gravitated more and more towards swathing and then picking the swath up, just because we don't have a draper platform for our combine, and so if you've got that tool in your toolbox already or thinking about doing it, understand that could be a big help to you. It will definitely make straight cutting work a lot better for you. The nice thing about straight cutting is, when the grain is dry, you can just go out and get it, and you don't need to worry about it being in the way of wet weather, laying on the ground. But with that said, you need to then have storage capability to take the crop through its sweat cycle, with oats in particular. So you get your, just another thought to keep in mind about harvesting, regardless of how you're doing it, is harvesting a small grain crop. It's time sensitive. You need to get it done in a timely manner. Here in Iowa, with oats, at least the last 2 years, we haven't had a problem with that. Our oats have been ready to harvest anywhere from the last few days of July up through the middle of August. And that tends to be the drier time of our summers most years, so that seems to work well. But I know for us last year it was a little wetter than it was in 2015, so we found ourselves dodging a few more raindrops trying to get the oats harvested than we had the year before. But you just need to have the equipment you need, everything in place to go when that crop's ready. Those seeds and their connections to that straw tend to be very fragile as they approach maturity and getting to a dried down state. So you don't want to let them sit out there too long. It's very different than what you may be used to with corn, where you can get corn black layered and it can stand out in the field for 6 weeks to 2 months sometimes if it's got a good healthy stalk, and it's not going to be any worse for it. So it's not that way. It'd be more like soybeans in that regard. You need to try to be very timely with your harvest and just plan ahead for that. I've mentioned having a bin. It's really helpful to have a bin to put the crop in. It's going to help you with, like sweating, the sweating process. And then, if your crop comes out of the field wet and you need to do a little extra drying to it, it'll give you that opportunity and that capability. And then just for marketing the crop, if you're going to keep it around and try to extend your marketing window, you need to be able to keep it in condition. And it's always wise to be able to put some air on grain periodically and manage the temperature. And it's true with oats as it is with corn or soybeans or anything else. So that, along with the bin, you need to have a bin that's got good aeration in it. We've got a bin with a full floor in it. It's actually got a floor and a fan that come from the CMC company. Their primary focus through the years has been producing aeration equipment that works especially well for small grains. So I know the floor that we've got in the one bin that we put oats in has got very small apertures on the floor panels, so you don't have to worry about oats or other small crops getting stuck in there and falling through. So it's worked really well. I think back to my days of growing up on the farm, and we raised a few oats, probably never more than 5 to 10 acres in a given year back in the 70s and early 80s. And we typically would just put them in open top overhead bins in our old corn crib. And I can remember going up there and stirring the oats periodically with an old silage fork to help them finish their sweat cycle. So it's very different today than those at that time, and that's good. You need better tools to be able to manage that type of thing today. So now I'm going to move on to marketing. I mentioned it early on. I said even though it was last in one of my earlier lists, just because it's last, it's not least, and it's important. It's probably the first thing you need to think about, really. And we've found that both in our planning and just the hard way too. When it comes to marketing, with small grains, you've got a number of different things there that you can look at selling. I'm just going to talk about oats here now, but like with oats, you've got the grain, you've got the straw. If you choose to, you could also cut that crop even while it's still green and make a hay crop out of it. I had a neighbor a couple years ago that was very interested in in buying our oat crop off of us that year, he wanted to turn it into silage bales that he was going to wrap, and we were bound and determined to make a grain crop out of it, and we didn't do that. But just understand, there's lots of opportunities there. If you've got your own livestock, or maybe you've got a neighbor that's got some livestock that's looking for some feed. Guys that are savvy in that regard they're often looking for lots of different alternatives for feedstocks, and small grains can make an excellent hay or silage if they're harvested at the right stage. Anyway, we're going to focus now mainly on the grain and the straw side of it. And each one of you's got to decide what you're going to do there. You got to pick your crop, and you got to figure out what your markets are, or what you think you could make them to be if they don't exist like you'd like them to be. Sometimes you can develop a market, and we're going to talk about that. If you've got your own livestock, your job may be very easy. You may just be growing these to feed your own animals, and by all means do that. There's a lot of wonderful feed value in these small grain crops for livestock, so that is to your advantage. For us at this point, we don't have a lot of demand for the small numbers of livestock we have at this point, so that's not a real big option for us. So we've had to look real heavily at marketing oats in particular here in Iowa, and we've learned very quickly it's not like marketing corn and soybeans. You can go to an elevator or an ethanol plant or a few other places, just about anywhere in Iowa, and find a ready and willing buyer for those crops. Those days are gone for oats and for other small grains. There's a few elevators and feed mills around that will buy a few oats, but they are not going to give you a real strong price for those. So if you are wanting to raise a crop like oats or another small grain and capture a stronger price for it, you're going to have to be willing to think outside the box there and look elsewhere. Because they're just in Iowa, and I'm guessing it's true in many other Midwestern states, there's just not a widespread established cash market for these crops anymore. So I'm going to talk now about the grain. Oats in particular here. So those are a handful of oats that are from our farm, and on the right there is a picture of one of our labels off of our 50-pound bags of oats that we sell. Oats, along with other small grains, they can be used for feed, human food, or they can be used for seed. So you've got human food, you've got livestock feed, and in some cases, seeding opportunities there. Like with oats in particular, there's if you can grow a crop of oats and you can sell the seed, or you can use it yourself to plant as a cover crop or as a nurse crop if your target is raising a good forage crop. If you're looking at the food grade side of the equation, here in Iowa, there's a great option for that in regards with grain millers. They are a food grade miller located in St. Ansgar, Iowa, which is in northern Iowa, not too far from the Minnesota border. They buy a lot of organic oats primarily. They do buy some conventional, but their biggest thing that I have found the last couple of years seems to be organic. They buy a lot of oats for organic milling, and so that is an option for you. It just depends on where you live, how far away you are from there, and whether or not you can raise oats to the standards that they need to mill them. Again, there's lots of good information and further details about that in the rotationally raised videos, so check those out. You might also be able to develop your own local food market for milled grains. There are people doing that. We've had people that have stopped and bought oats from us for livestock feed, and we've gotten in. They will bring that subject up sometimes. Is it possible for you to roll or flake these oats and make oatmeal for me, for instance, or whatever, or make flour for me? So just understand there are people out there looking for those types of things, and be willing to pursue those if it's something you feel like you could do or would want to do. If you're going to bag and sell oats for feed or for seed, understand you're going to need to be able to clean them. You may need to be able to do some further processing to them, and then you need to be able to package them to sell them. We're doing that for feed. We're doing that for some cover crop applications. One thing we've learned, you need to understand, at least in Iowa, if you're bagging and tagging even a whole grain for sale, the IDALs, or the Iowa Department of Ag and Land Stewardship, who is in charge of licensing commercial feed manufacturers, they consider even that manufacturing a feed. And you've got to have a commercial feed license to do that. Now, if you're just going to run them into a wagon and sell them in bulk form to people, as long as they're not milled, you don't need a license to do that. But if you're going to bag them and tag them and sell them, you've got to be licensed to do that in the state of Iowa. But understand it may be worth it to do that. It gives you some more options for capturing above average prices and making the grains far more profitable. But I'll just let you know from experience the last 2 years, it's a lot of extra work. So you got to determine what your own bandwidth is in that regard. You got to figure out what you're good at, or what you want to get good at, or what you have time for, or what you're willing to make time for, and let that guide you. But there's lots of options for marketing the grain right off your farm. But you're going to have to go after that and make that happen for yourself. You're not going to find people, for the most part, just beating down your door wanting to buy your oats or your wheat or your barley. You're going to have to go out and find people that want them. And they're out there, but they generally don't know that there are any farmers in Iowa producing them. So they're just not looking for you or I, for the most part. So that's a little bit about marketing the grain. With oats and with wheat, even barley and rye, you've got the potential to, capture the stalk or the stover after you've harvested the grain and bale it up and make straw out of it. We've done a lot of that the last 2 years, and we're committed to doing more of that in the future. We've found, for us, oat straw has been a very valuable commodity. People want it for animal bedding. They want it for plant mulching or mulching their gardens. Landscapers want it for seeding cover. Had a number of people buy a few bales here and there just to throw around a building to insulate it ahead of cold weather. So it's very valuable. We've found that even though they're a lot more work, the small bales are where the real value is at. I'm guessing most of you probably already understand that, but increasingly large bales, whether they're round bales or large squares, they're just a low value bulk commodity most of the time by comparison. So if you're looking for ways to capture extra value there, small bales are a viable option. But you've got to figure out what you've got for equipment and labor, or what you're willing to have in that regard if you don't have it, and just move in whatever direction works for you there. But there are opportunities there. We have not had any problem selling small square bales of oat straw. That is a good market. Again, just like the grain, timely harvest and storage is critical. You need to have the tools and the people ahead of time to do it right. You got to get that stuff off the field and get it in storage. People don't want to buy wet bales from you. They don't want mold on stuff, so they want to know it's dry. And so, anyway, if you can put up a good quality product, it's not hard to sell. But if you put up junk, you're not even gonna be able to give it away. But if you have land, fortunately, you can just spread it back on the land, and it'll make organic matter for you. So it's never a waste. So moving on here, we're getting close to the end now. I want to just talk a little more about marketing. It's just essential. We quickly discovered that if we wanted to realize the kind of margins that we were looking for from a small grain crop, that we were going to have to get creative and we were going to have to do some work. We've done a lot of research into marketing our own oats and other grains off the farm the last 2 years. We spent 3 days with some folks from PFI last spring at the Iowa Horse Fair, just talking to and interviewing horse owners to try to understand the horse feed market for oats. For years I had walked in and out of farm supply stores and noticed that you could buy any of these grains that we raise in 50-pound bags, and you could spend a lot of money doing it. And so somebody out there is cleaning and bagging and selling that stuff and making money at it. And we quickly asked ourselves 2 years ago, is there any reason why we couldn't do that, or what would it take to break into that market? Is that really just for the big boys, or are there ways for just an individual farmer like ourselves, farm family like ourselves, to go after that and carve out a local or regional market? So we've researched that. It has led us into bagging and selling both the whole grains, and then we took another giant step last fall and started a full-blown, complete mixed feed business. That postcard you see there on my slide, that is our one of our advertising brochures that we hang up on bulletin boards and we hand out to people, and it's been one of our better ways of promoting our business and promoting our products. We get calls from people that see them and end up buying things, and so I've gone in about a 50-mile radius around where we live 2 times in the last 6 months, just catching every bulletin board that I can find and hanging those things up and going back and hanging them up again if they're gone. And so we've done a lot of grassroots work there to try to get our name out there and develop a brand and a new business there. So we've, as that card shows there, we're selling grains, we're selling feed supplements. We're a distributor for a couple different high quality feed supplement manufacturers there in Fertrell and Redmond. And between them and our own grains, which are all non-GMO, we have gone after that market. So we've got our own corn, we've got our own soybeans, we've got our own oats, we roast our beans, and we can make our own livestock feeds with our own grains and these supplements. And we're slowly building a market, primarily among small livestock owners, for good quality feeds. And it's providing another outlet for our oats, for our small grain in this case. But again, just understand there's opportunity there, but it's a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work. I've lost track of the amount of hours I put into just the marketing and the business development behind all of this, for getting just the infrastructure in place from a record keeping perspective to keep track of all of this, to track our own records, but also to satisfy the state of Iowa in regards to being a licensed feed manufacturer. And then just, we've got these cards. My wife puts these together and we get them printed at Staples, and they've proven to be very effective. And so on my last slide here, that's actually our business card there. It's got similar logo and design, similar information as what you saw on the card before, but that's something we hand out to a lot of people, and we post them on bulletin boards. And then we've dove headfirst into electronic marketing. We got our own website up and running last fall and are slowly learning how to make that work better. The link there is shown, CanfieldFamilyFarm.com, and we're using Facebook. We're learning how to do that, and little by little, we're slowly connecting with people and getting our name out there. but it's a lot of work, but it's proving to be rewarding. I'm encouraged and excited by. So I guess I should say some days I'm scared, and other days I'm encouraged. And there's been enough more encouragement than scary moments to keep pressing on and keep doing what we're doing. And I feel free to check out what we're doing on our website. Feel free to call me or email me if there's any way I can help you learn how to do some of this in your own neck of the woods, depending on where you live. I'll be glad to do that. But there's a lot of people out there that are very interested today in buying as much as they can from farmers directly right off the farm. But we have to go find those people, and we have to connect with them and build relationships with them. And but I had never done anything like that in my whole life before 2 years ago, really going out and doing sales and marketing type work. And I didn't think I could ever do it, but I've been pleasantly surprised that it's been easier for me than I thought it would be. And I enjoy getting to, if you like people and you're willing to build relationships with people and get to know new people, it can be very rewarding. I've in the process of doing all this, I'm having more fun farming, and I feel better about what I'm doing than I have my whole life. And I've been involved in farming my whole life. I'm 48 years old now, and we've got 4 kids that really love farming and everything that goes with it. And at the end of the day, all of this is again directed back to trying to build some new opportunities for them down the road. As I see it, from what I've experienced and what I see going on today, you basically got 2 tracks, and I'm going to close with this thought and open it up to questions. There's 2 tracks that agriculture is increasingly moving people down. You're either part of large-scale, vertically integrated, industrialized agriculture, and that's going to force you to just be a cog in that system, either producing a feed product or producing an animal product, or you can move in another direction where you pursue some type of value-added production and go out and seek out end users to produce that for. And it's a lot of work, but it gives you a lot more control potentially over your future there, and opens up some new opportunities that just are not available just being involved in the wholesale side of farming. I mean, our goal in the next 5 to 10 years is to try to move as much, if not all, of our farm production away from wholesale commodities to something we can add value to and move right off the farm retail. And I guess I've seen enough positive progress here just in the last year and a half on that I think it may be possible, but it's going to take a lot of work, and the end of the story is yet to be written. But anyway, I'm going to end with that. Steve, are there any questions? I haven't really looked at the chat box there.
Yeah,
Is there anything?
thanks, Earl. That was fantastic. There were a few questions that came in, but you seemed to cover those as they came in. So I don't think there's anything you missed. It looks like there's 2 questions just popping in the box right now. One from Lenny.
Yep.
It says, have you considered cover
Yep.
crops such as buckwheat for weed control?
That's a great question, Lenny. That's something I'm trying to learn more about. I'm trying to learn as much as I can about a lot of different cover crops like that, and I haven't actually planted those yet, but I definitely think that will be something we're going to try in the future. And that's like I said, we are a work in progress with all this. I'm really, on the one hand, I'm becoming an expert, but in many respects I'm not, because there's still so much I don't understand and so much we're learning. But yes, that is a great thought and a great idea there. One I want to learn more about. Let's see there. Yep, Nick's got the buying specs for grain millers. That's good. Oh yeah, they make it very clear to you what you need to be able to bring to them there. Yes, and definitely check out all of the rotationally raised videos. A lot of good information there. I think there's 9 of them out there now, and there's what, 2 or 3 more maybe coming yet. I don't know for sure, but a lot of good information there. Um, I see somebody asked about regulations for selling for human consumption. Yeah, I believe there are. It's one of the reasons I haven't too actively gotten into that yet. I don't know enough about that myself to know for sure what I can and can't do there, but I believe there are. I think you have to. I believe you have to have separate, pieces of equipment for storing and handling and milling, all of that type of stuff. I think it's probably all got to be stainless steel, if I'm not mistaken. So there are some obstacles there. That said, if you were just targeting a small market, you might be able to get some equipment, some very small scale equipment that would be affordable and would allow you to process on a small scale and slowly build a business there. But I have a lot to learn there myself. But great question. See, one of the guests there asked about value added production. Absolutely, I am told we are all in on this value added production thing. I am convinced it's the way forward for our farm, and could be for a lot of farms similar in size to us if you're willing to learn how to do it. But it's a lot of work. I mean, it's not, you can't just drop your crop at the co-op and forget about it. It's the marketing side all of a sudden becomes a huge part of your life, and there are rewards for that. We've seen glimpses just of what could happen here, but it's on a small scale so far. But there are opportunities to greatly increase your margins on your grains and open up new streams of income by being willing to do some of this. And there is a growing base of customers out there that are looking for stuff like this, but you have to let them know you're there, and you have to be willing to deliver what they want. So and we're just learning. Like I said, I've learned more. I've learned more in the last 5 years than I did my whole farming life before that. And I've always been an avid learner. I love to read and research things and learn about things, and uh, through reading and through just connections I've made with so many different people through PFI and other organizations like that, it's opened up a whole new world to us here, and it's given us cause to be a lot more excited about the future than we were 2 or 3 years ago, quite frankly.
Well,
Anything else there that's begging for my
yeah, it looks
attention?
like there's a couple of guys typing right now. So while we
Okay,
wait for
yep.
those
Let
questions,
them
I
think
was
there.
wondering, Earl, about your when you were talking about your marketing. Um, you said that straw
Yep,
bales generally aren't real difficult for you to get rid of, but you've done a lot of outreach for selling animal feed, and
yep, we have.
you mentioned specifically going like within a 50 mile radius to hit a lot of bulletin boards. Has that been like, do you think you sell a lot of your animal feed within a 50-mile radius, or do you find marketing outside of that and doing any shipping, or is
Well,
it all?
we definitely are selling animal feed up to those
Yeah.
boundaries. And it doesn't look like anything's going to become of it, but I had a call from a lady near Green Bay, Wisconsin about a month ago looking for non-GMO based livestock feed for a sheep flock. And she's just too far away to make it work out. And she found us through Craigslist. So, we're on
Okay.
Craigslist. Craigslist has been great. It's free, but it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility to really put all of the information and the message and the information out there that you need to. So we, we do it. So we got the website, we got Facebook, we've got these cards we hang up all over the place, and we're finding that, we get contacts just randomly from any and all of them, uh, more and more over time. And then, as you make connections with people, I mean, it's amazing. You find one customer that likes what you got, and all of a sudden they share it with all their friends on Facebook, and all of a sudden you've got 3 or 4 more people that are emailing you and calling you and wondering if you can do this or that for them. And it's really helped us too to have a lot of different things to sell. So we've been selling small square bales of hay. We're out of those now until next summer, we've got straw bales, we've got livestock feed supplements, we've got complete mixed feeds, we've got our own bagged whole grains or milled grains. So, we'll crack corn and bag it, or we'll bag whole corn. And I found a number of times where somebody will come to our farm just, you know, for the purpose of getting one of those things, and then all of a sudden they discover that you're doing all these other things, and they may leave with 3 or 4 different things in their truck or their trailer, or they tell you about somebody else they know that, oh, I know so and so is looking for this, and I'll have to let them know you've got it. And um, but it's a very dynamic environment, and yeah, I don't know, long term, just I don't know how much market is out there and how far we're going to have to go to get it. And I know there's a lot of, we're selling a lot of feed just to people that are growing their own food. People living on acreages that have got 20 chickens and a half a dozen sheep and a half a dozen milking goats and a couple beef cows and some pigs. And so, and so we've got, we are reaching out to a market segment that the big feed mills don't want anything to do with anymore. And they frankly can't service them anymore. I mean, our local feed mill in Dunkerton, they won't bring you anything, or they really don't want to, unless it's at least 3 ton. We'll mix up 50 to 100 pounds of feed for somebody. We've got a small stationary mixer that we can easily mix up anywhere from 100 pounds to 1,400 pounds in at a time. It's real easy to clean out. So we can switch from sheep feed to goat feed to chicken feed real quickly and not worry about any issues with contamination. And our feed is all non-medicated. We have a very specific, we make non-medicated feeds. We don't put preservatives in them. So, we're not milling huge batches of feed and bagging them up and letting them sit on the shelf for weeks on end. We let people know that, let us know when, we'll mix up maybe 1,200 pounds of chicken feed, and then we've got a half a dozen people that all want maybe 100 or 200 or 300 pounds of it every month, and they come and get it. And so we can, we're just kind of, it is, like I said, it's very dynamic. We're just kind of learning as we go here what's going to work. But
Yeah,
it's really gratifying when you reach out to people and they tell you how much they like what you just sold them, or how good their chickens are doing, or whatever. It's really, like I said, I feel better about being a farmer than I have in my whole life, getting involved in this.
that's
And
awesome.
it's really,
Yeah,
it's
cool,
encouraging.
good. Yeah, and so hopefully all after
So
these couple of years of all that effort putting into marketing, it should start working for itself then for you with the word of mouth and everything. But
I see.
yep.
So Jake, yeah, you asked there about cleaning your own grain or farming that out. So we do have our own grain cleaner. It's just a clipper. Right now, what we have is a small clipper 2B, and my 2 oldest boys got really creative this winter, and they found a way to mount that thing on top of the cleaning hopper of an old rotary grain cleaner. And we've got that thing set up now so that we can run grain in that, and we can clean a lot of grain in an hour with that thing and not have to shovel any of it or really handle any of it by hand. So we have our own cleaning capability. I'm in the process. I don't know when I'm gonna have it all done. I'm in the process of getting some used cleaning equipment from an old mothballed seed plant that would give us a lot more capacity down the road. I mean, we're just doing this all on a shoestring right now. We're doing it out of space in our machine shed, and we really need, I'm really hoping this grows to the point where we can put up another dedicated building that could house the seed and the feed and the hay and the straw, and it would greatly improve our ability to deal with all this. But yeah, we do our own cleaning. We certainly could. Uh, we could do cleaning for other people. Now that we've got that clipper set up with a more automated takeaway system, we definitely could do that. So feel free to contact me on that if we could help you out there. Um, Yes, another guest there talks about the potential of increasing diversity within farming systems, essential to helping farmers adapt. Absolutely, I think as we learn how to uh, widen our crop rotations and complete the circle that wider crop rotations and livestock impact bring back to the land, we are inevitably going to build more health back into the soil that is going to make our farms far more resilient in the face of adverse and more challenging climatic or weather conditions. Absolutely. Um, so it's all tied together when you get back to the soil, and the soil hands off nutrition to plants, and they hand it off to animals, and one or both hand it up back off to we as people. And so it behooves us to learn how to make that all work better. And we're just trying to do that on our own farm here. And we talk a lot about that on our website. I mean, we not only are learning how to use our website better to market, but are increasingly trying to use it along with our Facebook page as a tool to educate people on how to think about food and food production and farming. Um, that is a big part of, in order to make a retail business like this, get it off the ground and get it going. You spend a lot of your time not only talking to people but in fact educating them, and because most people don't know a lot about food production and what does it really matter what we do and what we don't do here on the farm. I see all of this going on, in the broader landscape of agriculture. Is that really all that it's cracked up to be, or is there really something to, giving deeper thought to this whole issue of GMO versus non-GMO, or organic versus non-organic, or, what's the deal with improving soil biology? People do want to understand that stuff. And I run into a lot of people that are not farmers. They have no farming background, but you'd be surprised how interested they are in learning about this stuff, and how happy they are when they know there's a farmer within a half an hour from them that is also seriously considering all this and doing what they can to make a difference and move in a different direction. So it's 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 uh it's very rewarding in that regard. Yeah, Jake, by all means, feel free to contact me or anyone else out there. Like I said, I'm an open book here. Um, Always happy to help anybody that I can. We're just learning ourselves, and always happy to pass on the things we learned from the School of Hard Knocks. So, anything else?
Yeah, Earl, it looks like Jake had one more question in there about asking what you're following your oats with. Is it hay, cover crop, fallow, corn or bean?
So, yeah, good question. 2 years ago, when we first seeded a large amount, so we seeded 32 acres of oats 2 years ago, and then we underseeded that with about a 8 to 10 way mix of grasses and legumes, because long term, that first field, it adjoins two different sides of our farmstead, and we're hoping to turn that into a very diverse perennial uh, pasture that we could rotationally graze livestock on. So we knew that. So he said we're going to underseed that. We had excellent forage that we baled last year off of that. Then last year, so that field was second year. That was first year hay last year. We took a couple other fields that totaled about 50 acres last year. We seeded the one larger field of about 39 acres to just oats. We didn't underseed a forage crop under that. And then the other 12-acre field we put oats on, along with some alfalfa and some fescue and some orchard grass. And my initial thought last year, so on that 12 acres, then we've got a really nice crop of hay coming this year that we'll be able to bale. It looked really good last fall, but anyway, on that other field, um, my initial thought was that when we harvested the oats, we would go in and seed a cover crop, like some ryegrass or something else. And when I got to that point, I shifted gears and did things a little differently for a number of different reasons. I'll just tell you real quick what I did. We harvested that oat field, and within that was like mid-August. We finished baling all the straw there mid-August too. Then we had a third crop of hay coming on that we had to deal with. By the time we got that all up, there was this beautiful, lush regrowth of a combination of oats that we had missed with the combine, and then you had some foxtail and you had some other broadleaves growing. And I looked at that; it was just solid everywhere. And also understand this field that we were on; it was our most rolling and erosion-prone field on the farm, and we didn't have a no-till drill. So I looked at all that and I said, what if we would just, everything that's growing there is going to winter kill when we get a killing frost. What if we just mow that, make sure the weeds don't go to seed, and just let that whole thing grow? It will at least give us something green growing until at least mid-November, maybe longer, depending on when we get a killing frost. And so we did that. Rather than, because I didn't want to, 3 years ago, along with a lot of other things, we went away entirely from using any GMO seeds. Along with that, we went away from using any glyphosate. We've got some really strong convictions about that. So it would have been easy to just gone out and sprayed glyphosate on that, killed it all, and then no-tilled a cover crop. But I would have been shooting myself at the foot, I felt, while helping myself on the other hand. So I thought, let's think here a little deeply, or a little more broadly about this, and because the goal, of a cover crop on the one hand is to have something green and growing as many months of the year as possible, and then to have a mulch on that field the next spring at least to plant into. So we just mowed that. We only had to mow it we waited until late September. We mowed it with a 15-foot batwing mower that I rented from a neighbor, and that we didn't have to touch it again, and it stayed green until nearly December. We didn't have to spray a chemical we didn't want to. We didn't have to tear the field up and make it prone to erosion. So this spring we've got a nice brown cover over that whole field that we can go into, and we can either no-till some beans on, or we could do some light tillage with our aerator and plant some corn on or something else. So that's what we ended up doing. I definitely want to plant some actual quote-unquote cover crops that will, grow and reawaken in the spring and give me year-round cover there, but everything didn't work out the way I had planned there to do that. But I feel like we made the best out of a little less than an ideal situation, and we saved some money in the process and accomplished at least some of the goals that you're seeking to accomplish with a cover crop. And we'll see how that works this year. Yes, yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to grow some rye after some oats. Might possibly do that on some ground this year if we can make it work. Um, but we may need to find a way to get a no-till drill sooner than I think. But anyway, that would have helped us out tremendously last fall.
Yeah, and as Stefan mentioned in the chat box there, practical.
Yeah,
We've done a lot of
absolutely.
research on that
Yep.
kind of stuff, and really, as early harvest of small grains in the summer allows for a lot of time to establish a fall cover crop. So we have a lot of research support about
Yep,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So
So yeah, just
go ahead.
by all means be willing to experiment, and just try new things and see what works on your own farm or with your own equipment. We're doing a lot of that, and you sometimes learn things that you weren't expecting you would learn, and so
Good deal. Yeah.
yes, yeah. If you've got animals, you can graze them. Yes, very good.
Yep. And we also have other. We recently put out kind of a cheat sheet on herbicides and grazing cover crops because that's one thing you need to be aware of, I guess, is uh, the kind of herbicides you use
Yeah,
before you graze them. So that's again on our website and there.
right.
Um,
Yep. Yeah, and then again, keep that in mind as you're planning on planting any small grain. Make sure you understand the ramifications of your previous herbicides or what you may put on other fields that you may rotate to a small grain next year or the year after. It's you gotta plan all that ahead of time. So, well, very good. I hope many of you have gained something of value to take home with you tonight. Thanks for all the good questions, and thank you to you, Steve, and everyone else at PFI for all of your help and partnership in just walking down this type of a path and learning how to stand and make it work. It's very helpful.
yeah, thank you very much, Earl. And your words for being an open book. We really appreciate that. And this has been a lot of information, um, and and we appreciate you sharing with us, and we appreciate everybody tuning in to watch this. Jake, or was it Ryan? Yeah, Ryan. We'll find that. Oh, there it is. Nick just posted a herbicide sheet. That might be what I was talking about. Um, but anyways, tune back in for next week's Farminar. We do these on Tuesday nights throughout the winter. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Earl, great presentation. We appreciate the time you put into it.
Hey, thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone.